in one jury room to convict them.
Yeah, that would be hard, I think. But just the bringing on charges and having a Chauvin type trial that everybody's watching could have an impact.
Maybe, but from my point of view, I just cannot see how so many Republicans could be so ignorant. It just staggers the imagination.
I don't think it's
ignorance. I've completely lost faith in the Republican Party and its constituents. Then I see, even though I would like to see America come together, I see it growing further and further apart.
You have 70
you have
million
people believing just unbelievable things, just incredible things. They believe it. They believe it. Republicans believe just incredible things.
It's more a question of what you can believe an awful lot of things as long as they lead you to where you want to be. I don't know. I have to believe that that we can come together, the vast majority. No place will everyone ever agree on much of anything. Absolutely. But the vast majority, I have to believe, could come together if we could find a way for them to find common ground. We tried to do it last month, that show. We really didn't get very far. Maybe we can do it again. But there's got to be a way, simply because you got to live with each other. If my neighbors, and by the way, I have some neighbors who are fairly conservative, and I can't agree on certain basic things, we can't exist in the same street.
Okay.
We would be constantly interfering with. Paul, you there?
I'm here, but you stopped talking.
Yes, I think Bob has stopped talking.
Okay. Rose, I'm sorry. Okay.
The first thing I want to say is we have to break the connection by linking the word conservative to Republicans. I have yet to find any Republicans recently that are conservative, and let me give you my reasons. Conservative says, like the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. And it doesn't mean I'll write any law as long as it makes me richer. Their philosophy is not conservative. All of these tax, as an example, the tax cuts. It's good for individual wealth, but it it puts the country in debt. You think about your bank account. You can't keep writing checks without any money in the bank, and that's anti-conservative. They want to continue cutting taxes, continue shrinking their income of the United States. They can be physically conservative in their own in their own dealings with their own money. When I was growing up, that was called cheap. But
that's me.
When you decide to shrink the amount of income the country has, and it's already operating at a loss, and you have a big tax cut, then that's not conservative at all.
Well, think of the tax cut was sold on the idea that if you reduce taxes, the growth, because people would have more money, they'd spend more, they'd buy more, people would make more, everybody would do better, and ultimately we would collect as much taxes as we did before, and everybody would be happier. If that was valid, which I don't think it was, but if that was valid, then building or repairing bridges and roads and putting Wi-Fi in places so that people can participate should have the same effect. And therefore, the logic should be the same. I think that really what you need is you need some consistency.
Yeah, you definitely need consistency.
This is interesting what Bob said, because I also was going to point out that Biden's plan to invest in infrastructure essentially lays the groundwork not only for jobs, but also builds the United States forward, so that conservatives' thought is that you got to make sure you leave the country in a good shape for the next generation and all that. But if we do not invest in infrastructure, the whole country is going to fall apart. What are we leaving the country? What kind of country are we leaving for our children and grandchildren, for the future generations? So, and at the same time, if we do not invest in infrastructure, what is also going to happen is all the other powers, be it Russia, be it China, they're going to continue hacking, or Iran continue hacking into our system, and everything is going to get kaput if we don't do it proactively. So in that sense, I agree that being conservative would be to invest in such a way that puts the country first, not just give tax cut to people who God knows what they will do with it.
Well, if you go back 100 years, the Republicans have believed that government should be as minimized as much as possible, and that if things need to be done, they can be done by people organizing themselves, not having the government organize. That was part of their objection to the New Deal back in the 30s. At the same time, when Eisenhower did the second biggest infrastructure of the last 150 years with the road system, everybody recognized that the productivity of the country would be increased to such an extent, and the investment was more than any group, private group, could do, that it made sense. And it made fantastic sense. It made us a much, much stronger country in terms of the economy, in terms of interaction with each other, etc. This should be sold as the third infrastructure investment of the last 120 years, 100 years, whatever the heck it is, that will do the same thing. When you say infrastructure is only roads and bridges, you're forgetting railroads, which, by the way, was financed by the federal government. You're forgetting all kinds of the canals back in the early 1800s that improved things tremendously, allowed the country to interact with each other and have a tremendous commerce. Some things are required. Now, I question whether some of the stuff in the bill is infrastructure. I don't necessarily believe that it's bad. I think it may be very good, but by definition, I don't know that it's infrastructure. And if I were in a negotiating position, I might trade dropping things like elder care or free tuition for community college for support of the other things and the paying for it, which, by the way, he's actually looking at doing by reversing some of Trump's tax cuts, which did not do what they were touted to do, which was
But they
to
did exactly
increase,
what Trump wanted them to do, and that is to
That-
transfer
that's-
wealth to the wealthy.
yeah.
and
And-
get reelected.
Well,
Well,
it-
then it didn't do what he wanted it to in that regard.
but it,
Well, maybe that was a little fly in there somewhere. But
Details,
but
although it would have worked.
But what I was also going to say is that the whole idea, what you just brought up, that when the New Deal came in and that made country wealthy, stronger, not only nationally, not only domestically, but also throughout the world. It essentially opened up and made United States as the exceptional city, exceptional, what is that called? There's a special term. United States as an exceptional, no,
Exceptionalism.
exceptionalism, yes. So that kind of a thing crept into the lexicon because of the way the country was put together domestically, but then it projected the image internationally. No matter what you did, no matter what United States did, everybody looked up to the United States. Now, if we destroy all that, what is going to happen is we are gradually losing ground to Russia, losing ground to China, and from my standpoint, you run away from WHO. What kind of leverage do we have in the world over healthcare? We should be leading the WHO, do this, do this, do that. And we run away from it, then WHO, we can then complain ad infinitum. What good is it?
Well, it allows us to complain. Don't knock that. But actually, I have to disagree with you on one thing. The American exceptionalism,
yes,
really came out of World War II, not of the New Deal.
Yes,
the New Deal was actually failing. 37, the economy was worse than it was in 33. And if it hadn't been for Hitler, it would probably have taken a lot longer for everything to pick up. But when we started girding up to fight and support people, the West in World War II, that's really what changed things around. And then we were the only major power that had not been literally destroyed, flattened during the war.
Yeah, that was
So
a good point. That's a very good point. Yes.
the infrastructure, being roads and bridges, yes, but then what are the other roads? The other roads are waterways for shipping,
right?
Internal shipping, airports for moving people and goods. Those things are infrastructure, and right now data is vital, and
Yes.
that's the internet.
Cyber security would be the major item I would vote for. Provide enough, because cyber security just goes across disciplines. Data goes across disciplines, and so that needs to be protected in a major way, because if you talk to cybersecurity people, they say that every day they get hits, not once, every second there are so many hits by state-owned entities. They want to steal, they want to take over things, and where are we? We are just fending off with a little fence without having real armor. I don't know.
Well, let's be honest. We're doing the same to them. It's not.
Yes,
we're
but
not
that's a different point.
the good little boys.
That's a different point of, that's a different discussion actually. Should
Well,
we be do should we, because that's what national entities have done since time immemorial in different ways, and that's what is called soldier spy. No, what was that called? Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. It's something. I mean, that was one level. Now it's entirely different dimension. So you have to keep doing. I shouldn't say keep doing it, but that's what national entities do.
Well, and for their own protection, they have to do it. It is possible for people not to do it. I mean, we have not militarized yet the Antarctic. We have not militarized yet space. We're going to do both. And I was just reading an article which was saying once you start doing these things, you can't stop.
No.
Is the moment it was acceptable for a second to have weapons or defenses or whatever in space around the Antarctic, you would have to continue because the other guy is probably going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
So, as with most things, there has to be an honest agreement that some things are more important than your individual family or country or whatever or race or religion or whatever it is that people believe in, and that the whole must survive.
But in order to achieve that, you cannot do that by running away from the Committee of Nations. You have to be an active player, whether you like it or not, because you look inwards, you will have people crawling all over you, and you will be looking inside, and people are chipping away, and that's not good.
I agree. The problem is if you could be, which you can't, but if you could be self-contained, then theoretically you could build a wall around yourself like a turtle and ignore what's going on around you. But the reality is we can't.
I mean, that's what yeah. What I was going to say is COVID-19 has really taught a good lesson throughout the world, that you can't hide. You have to cooperate, because supplies don't exist just in Jamaica. They exist everywhere else, and they need to be transported. They need to be placed in expert hands, so that water gotten from Poland Spring needs to be purified in Baltimore so that it can be used in a factory in Minnesota. And so you can, and then somebody is going to make vaccines in somewhere else. And if that is not taken into account, we will be in fact in a sorry state of affairs pretty soon.
And the ones who in fact do interact with the rest of the world will surpass us, because we'll be hiding and we won't have all the things we need, and they will. And if they don't have what we provide, since there's a couple of 8 billion people outside of the United States, somebody will figure it out. They don't need us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are some things that we do need that we don't have, and that is the rare elements to make integrated circuits in quantity and complexity. We can design the complexity, but we don't have the rare earth elements to do it, at least not enough of them. And if we ever have any hope of staying, quote, ahead of the rest of the world, which we are not you know, which we think we are, but um, we have to interact with everybody. All those, you know, that's why Afghanistan was so important, because they're, I don't know which of the rare earths that they have, but
Yes.
they have a large quantity of things that are used in integrated circuits and computers.
Right. And Africa has a bunch as well, and we
Yes.
essentially left Africa to the Chinese. So now the Chinese have all the essential things that are needed to dominate in a computerized world, and we will be left saying please and thank you, as opposed to being the leaders, which we have been up until
Very
6,
recently.
8, 10.
Well, the sad thing about this is that China has is not only developing technical know-how and has the raw materials and has created pipelines throughout the world, it also has the manpower. It has too many people. It doesn't matter how many people they destroy, there will still be people who can innovate and who can create more stuff than what we can.
Well, if you see China as being an entity and America being, an entity, I would tend to agree. But if you see alliances between America and Europe and the Southern Hemisphere, there's enough to compete, and enough different viewpoints and experiences that a healthy competition could result. I think that's the question. Competition in and of itself is not bad. If it is, then the whole concept of capitalism is shot. It's a healthy competition,
I mean,
where you're doing something to improve things rather than just to beat the other guy.
I mean, I think your point is really valid, because I think when Nixon opened up negotiations with China, I think that's what he had in mind, so that they can build a repertoire and have a healthy competition over time, because it doesn't happen overnight. But the thing is that you have to invest time, you have to invest energy, you have to invest the know-how to understand the other side, then to be able to succeed in appropriate negotiations. You can't go out there and say, I told you so, and that's how you sign at this line.
Right.
So,
and Nixon seeing this as a market. Even today, one of the most popular cars in China is a Buick.
mm-hmm.
It's made in China, but it's a Buick, because they were able to make that a symbol of somebody who really had done well. Kind of like the Cadillac used to be in America, maybe 40 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. So it was a market. It was a place that we could sell our products. It was a place where if I did some work here, I got money, and it wasn't from my neighbor, taking it from my neighbor. It was something coming in from the outside that all of us could share. And that's, I think, the concept of the global economy. Other people do some things better than we do, take advantage of it so we can do what we do well. That's mass manufacturing. If one person makes something and makes the whole thing, it's obviously very slow. You can only make a certain number of shoes because you're doing the whole damn thing, including feeding the cow that you're ultimately going to slaughter so you can get his skin. But if somebody gives you the leather and gives you the soles and gives you this and gives you that, and you just put it together, you can make a ton of them.
Mhm.
And that's basically how the Industrial Revolution works. And so Lowell used to be a clothing manufacturer. They didn't make the cloth, they didn't spin the threads. They put stuff together. Okay, that worked real well. We're going around and around. What do we do about it? How do we convince the people who are willing to be convinced? I make that as a major point. How do you convince the people who are willing to be convinced that we have to interact with each other, and including those people that don't agree with us on other things?
I think the problem is finding, is that many people are not willing to be convinced.
I accept that.
Said those willing to be convinced. Well, right now, that's not what we have. We have a whole bunch of people who have different points of view that do not meet in the middle. And, it's my way or forget it. And, I think that's the problem. We've lost the desire to work together. And,
Well,
I don't want to, I guess I'd like to at least change the subject a little bit to talk about something that's happening right now in the United States. We have 46 states trying to pass laws about voting, and the 14th Amendment basically prohibits every one of these attempts, plus the ones we already have. The words in the 14th Amendment: "No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness without due process of law." Now, restricting voting, they should be enabling voting, not restricting it. And if they say you need an ID card, the ID card should be free. You shouldn't, and it should be easily accessible. Not you have to go to the registry of motor vehicles and wait, an hour and a half to simply get your picture taken. And that's Massachusetts. What is it in these other states where people don't have, they're much more spread out. A law that says you can't give water to somebody who's waiting in line for hours. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
was
we have all of these. I think the problem is that the Republicans realize that they're only 33% of the country, and they don't want to give up. They don't want to give up power.
What I don't understand is what does giving water have to do with voting?
If you have a voting precinct where the machines break down, where there's inadequate machines, even when they're working, to deal with the population that is standing in line to vote, then anything you do to make it easier for those people to stay there, for example, giving an old person a chair, or giving somebody a drink of water or a sandwich, encourages them to stay. Where if they're not allowed to do any of these things, then people will give up and not vote. So if you can control the access to the machines and control whether the people are physically able to maintain themselves, and oh, by the way, close the polls at an arbitrary time, then you can limit the number of people in the areas that are likely to vote against you, whether they be a different color, a different religion, whatever it is. Then you can, in fact, have a minority government, which is exactly what Paul was talking about.
But I still don't understand why why would they say that don't give the water? Because is that because they say because you give water to somebody or a sandwich to somebody, that somebody is going to be obligated to vote for you?
Yeah, that's
That's the reason.
That's the
They give.
rationale they give you.
They do that the poll worker could go out and give you some water. They don't say that the poll worker will be given water to hand out, so it would have to come out of their pocket. And maybe the poll worker might be saying, hey, I'm giving you this because I'm a good guy and I kind of like Trump, or I kind of like Biden or whoever. There's nothing to stop that. The putting that in more than anything else is just thumbing your nose at the other side.
Because you can, I mean, people stand in line, they still talk to each other. Does that mean that even the talk between Bob and Paul should be prohibited because Bob might influence Paul at that time?
Yes. If you think about the logic, it should absolutely be.
I mean, I don't know what, as Paul said, what kind of thinking goes into that? I would tend to agree that's not conservative thinking.
Well, if you look at America's view of sports, they don't award any trophies for coming in second. The key is, I win, you lose, and whatever it takes. I mean, you can listen. I don't know if you listen to sports radio or not, but one of the things they'll be talking about in recaps of games, particularly games where the home team did well, they would be talking about the guy did whatever it took to win.
I see. Okay.
They didn't mean he pulled out a gun and shot the opposing players, but if I were thinking of it in terms of just the words, I might accept that as being, well, you did whatever was going to take. These guys are better, so you don't let them compete. Easiest way in today's day and age is to shoot them.
So what are the chances of these legislative items to pass and become law, although they contravene the 14th Amendment?
They all pass because the legislatures are one party or the other.
But doesn't that mean the court will have the last word, or no?
They're not taking them to court, and that's one of my biggest frustrations.
Oh, they are. It was taken to court immediately upon passage.
Which one?
So yes, they are. Georgia, the Georgia law. The moment they passed that, they
okay.
Put in. Now,
all the ones that have been written in the last 15 years that are restrictive have just gone. You know, there's lots of laws in every state that restrict voting, and every one of them is illegal. We're only talking about the ones in the 46 states now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, yeah. If you think about it, the states have always had the right to define who gets the vote.
No, they don't. No, they don't. That's a violation of the Constitution.
only in federal elections. For example, Wyoming, believe it or not, allowed women to vote in everything but federal elections. They weren't allowed to vote in federal elections because the U.S. Constitution did not allow women to vote.
Wow.
But
Hmm.
Wyoming, for local elections and state elections, allowed women to vote before the, I can't remember what the amendment was, but before the amendment, 17th, 16th, something like that. Florida, up until a couple of years ago, like 1 or 2 years ago, did not allow felons to vote unless they were, I think, unless they were pardoned. I don't remember exactly what the deal was. There are a number of other states who also have that limitation. And that's true of federal as well as state. So the states have always been responsible for defining who gets to vote with certain minimums. The minimums set by the federal government, such as 18-year-olds can now vote in federal elections, women, blacks, other things where the feds have stepped in and passed a law, or in some cases a constitutional amendment. But so the states do have the right to say, to manage their own elections, as long as they don't violate the minimums. And what really happened was the civil rights law back in the 60s said there are some states that have been always going too far. And so Congress said, you can't pass a law that will limit people's access to the ballot unless it's been cleared by the Justice Department. And then the Supreme Court, about 6 years ago, said, oh, we don't need this pre-clearance anymore because the problem no longer exists. And within hours of that ruling, there were laws initiated in the various legislatures doing exactly what would have been forbidden before the Supreme Court said no. And they didn't say, no, this is illegal, immoral, and fattening. They said, no, it's not necessary anymore because people don't do that anymore. So in theory, you could bring a case back to the Supreme Court and say, hey, in this particular ruling, you said people don't do it anymore, so you don't need the pre-clearance. Well, they're doing it now, so you should put back the pre-clearance. I don't know why anybody hasn't pushed that or not, or maybe it hasn't gotten that far yet. But I would think that would go a great way towards opening up the vote again. So I don't know. Would that? Do you think, Paul? Would you think that would solve the problems that you're worried about?
I think it'd be hard to convince the current court that just because people are starting to do it, because it's a 6-3 type of thing, or possibly 6-4, 5-4. But the fives that are in there now are they're hopeless. The 3 Trump supporters and one of.
Well, actually, there was a case that was decided today or yesterday, and unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me. I can't remember the details. That went 6-3 towards the liberals.
Yes, and I forgot what the case was.
Right. So did I. Maybe I can find it.
By the way, it's the 19th Amendment, women's right to vote.
Wow.
Okay.
What I still don't understand is that I mean, I do understand, but it still boggles my mind that why would, on the one hand, we want everybody to vote, and on the other hand, you limit people's chances to really participate fully. I mean, they are kind of countering each other. And is it just because there is a selfishness involved so that you prevent some people from voting, so that your vote, you get the government and that's it? Or there is some other nefarious things happening at the same time? Or that is the nefarious item in there?
I don't know. I think there are coalitions where some people want to be in power, and in order to do that, they need a certain amount of money that they get from other people who don't want to have the responsibility of doing things. They just want what they want done when they want it done. They support people. And this is on both sides. It's not just rich people saying that poor people should work for free. It might be poor people saying, I don't want to do this, that, and the other thing. I just want to have the advantages, or I want to get more than the other guy no matter what. I'm not expressing myself very well. I apologize.
We get what you mean.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the thing
Yeah.
on the case that we were talking about a minute ago, and I'm not finding it.
In that sense, you have a link with the.
No, what we.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm trying to do a bunch of things and not getting very far. What democracy only works when people really believe that it works, that people believe that you try to convince the other guy, or at least enough of the other guys, that you're right, that what you're saying becomes the law of the land. And to do that, you might have to compromise. You might have to give up a little bit of what you want to see in order to get somebody else to go along with you, and maybe give them something that you're not real happy with. Because, tomorrow it could be in the other direction. And you're fighting against something, and you'll go along with it as long as you get this, that, and the other thing in return. If you have that, then you have a democracy. If you don't have that, then you have some kind of an autocracy, whether it be by the minority, by the majority, whoever. You don't have a democracy. You don't have people coming together and agreeing that something's important, and you figure out a way to get it done. And unfortunately, that's where we are right now, and have been for a while.
I mean, right now, if you talk to people who did not vote for Biden, they say that he's taking our country directly into hellhole of communism. And there is no other description to that. And he is being manipulated, and whatever he had promised during, that's what Mitch McConnell also said, that he had promised to be a moderate, but he is taking us all the way to the extreme, and you can't even think of that. No way. So it's kind of interesting take on what Biden is doing and what the opposition projects him to be. So that's what Paul pointed out. There is no middle ground there.
Yeah.
They think it is tyranny.
It's how you characterize the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Is saying that, first of all, people don't understand what communism is. Communism is a political party, and it's not a philosophy. Socialism is the philosophy. But the guy who was in bed with the communist leader was Trump. Trump did whatever Putin told him to do, and Trump was thinking of himself because he was thinking of building a hotel in Moscow. if
Well,
he,
it would be interesting to find out if that ever comes out as some document somewhere between Putin and Trump.
well, they already negotiated what the hotel would look like. It just hasn't started. Putin was
Okay.
getting a
He was getting
$50 million.
penthouse.
He was getting a penthouse.
Right.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He was getting a $50 million suite in the hotel.
Wow.
I don't 50,000 doesn't sound right, but
No, it was 50
it was
million.
50 something.
It was, but as long as I can name the price, it doesn't really matter. I could make my house. You've seen my house,
Yep.
and say that's $50 million, and as long as you accept that I'm right, that's what it's worth.
Wait a few years, it might be. The way
Yes.
prices are going.
But how
Yeah,
come
that's
this is
true.
not on the news? Actually, I didn't hear this in the news that there is a $50
Well, it
million
was.
Trump this penthouse waiting for Putin.
In 2017 and 2018, they were talking about this when it came out that although Trump said, I didn't have anything going in Moscow before the election, and I don't have anything now. They were able to come up with this information. I don't think anybody cared is what mattered.
Yeah.
It
If
wasn't 17. It was 16
Oh, it was 16.
prior to elections that came out.
Okay.
And nothing
But
happened.
nobody thought that a president of the United States would be beholden to the leader of the Soviet Union. That was a pretty difficult pill to swallow. But
Well, nobody
all I
knew
remember
about
is
Deutsche.
in 2012 when Trump was running. He was on the stage as one of the participants in the pre-election for president. He wasn't given much of a chance at that time. I said, "What's he doing there? He's only in it for the money." And sure enough, in 2016 he got elected and he made hundreds of millions of dollars by being president.
Well, he's actually in deep trouble right now because he was president. Because a lot of people, went to Mar-a-Lago, etc. But if you look at the basis of his empire, it's urban real estate, and urban real estate is doing poorly. And what is going to be really interesting is in about a year and a half, when he's got $400 million in loans coming due, whether he's going to be able to find the money to pay that off, or he may go through another bankruptcy. And because Deutsche Bank is not going to be in position to bail him out this time like they did the last time he was in trouble. Deutsche Bank, it's a really fascinating thing. We keep talking about it, but it's hard to believe. Deutsche Bank lent Trump a whole bunch of money, including money that he himself was guaranteeing. He defaulted. Deutsche Bank said, "Where's my money?" or "Give me the property that you pledged." And Trump sued Deutsche Bank for causing the 2008 crisis and refused to pay. And then suddenly, Deutsche Bank starts lending him money again. Now, this is to be proved, so it's allegedly, but allegedly what happened was Russian mafia people poured money into Deutsche Bank to lend to Trump.
Yeah.
And that's where the $400 million is from. So Trump actually owes, takes a little bit of financial accounting, forensic accounting to find, but actually owes the Russian mafia a ton of money. And that may be why some of this other stuff is happening, because I don't think Trump ever wanted to be president. He didn't want the job. He liked the title, he liked the trappings, but he never really wanted to do the work.
No,
But how come Mueller did not bring this out, or because there was no
we don't
direct
know.
connection?
He didn't bring it out.
Well, it was there. There was discussion about it. He wasn't empowered to go into that.
Oh,
His job was to find collusion with the Russian government and the campaign. And he found a fair amount of Manafort, definitely, without question, but not enough to do more than imply that Trump himself had some liability. And I think with Giuliani being in trouble, there's a possibility that they may have found that witch that Trump kept saying they were hunting for.
but right now Giuliani says this is a witch hunt, which is
Yeah.
interesting. But at the same time, there was a news report that this process had started during Trump's time, but the Justice Department had stopped it.
Yes.
Which is kind of interesting that legally could they do that?
Yes,
They had
because the Attorney General is in charge of the Justice Department.
Oh, so he
And he
could do
always had
anything.
a friendly Attorney General. And what Biden is saying, the president has no business doing anything with the Justice Department. He's never going to tell the Justice Department anything to do.
I think Giuliani's son was talking about how crying foul about it. I think.
Yeah.
So this is a witch hunt and all that.
Oh yeah, well of course. As soon as somebody's caught, they say it's a witch hunt. I think they just don't have the correct consonant in front.
I see.
A B, not a W.
I see.
But that's neither here nor there.
So do you think that going back
we
to
have
your
a couple more.
What?
you froze?
I was just I keep freezing, so I'm losing track of the conversation. I was saying we have a couple more minutes. Anything else we want to talk about?
You were going to talk about that case, something you were searching for.
Oh, the Chopin, yes. That seems to have united a fair number, not everybody by any means, but a fair number of the members of the population seem to have accepted the fact that Chauvin got what he deserved. Except maybe Alan Dershowitz. He doesn't seem to agree, but I haven't seen his logic. What do you guys think?
Chauvin had a history of doing that. They found other instances where he had a knee on the neck, and then there was this other guy that was just killed. He had knees on the back, and then he stopped breathing after 5 minutes.
Something.
I mean,
Right.
if you look at, we do need the police, but at the same time, you see this Floyd guy is lying on the road. And Chauvin has the neck on his neck. His knee on his neck, and he is essentially under control of the police. Did he really need to continue to have the neck pressing down all that time? That's what is kind of. It's not an instantaneous decision to continue to do that. That's where I think that you can distinguish this case from all the other cases where there is an instantaneous danger to the police. Here, you had everything was in control, police was in control, and did they have to continue to push the make him stop breathing.
Yeah. Did you see the trial at all?
No.
Tobin's, Dr. Tobin, he was unbelievable. He was probably the most knowledgeable, thorough person I've ever seen on a witness stand. And he said that it wasn't as much the knee on the neck as it was the weight on the shoulders and the position he was in that cut off the breathing ability. And I can't say what he said because it was A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's how he died.
This is the medical examiner?
He was a breathing expert.
Oh, I see. I didn't watch it, so I don't know.
Oh,
okay.
If you ever have a chance to see his testimony, it's just staggering how he explained in very simple terms how this guy his breathing was impaired by his right lung was or his left lung, one of his lungs was significantly impaired, so he couldn't get air in. And he talked about all of the different things in the neck that help breathing, and he explained it, and he had pictures on it. The jury was fascinated. They never took their eyes off him for 2 hours. He talked about the process of it just happening, and I wish I had taped it because it was just unbelievable. And it was, he was in the prone position, and the 600 pounds of weight that was on him inhibited his breathing ability to breathe and get deep breaths, and he finally his brain shut down through lack of oxygen, and and he stopped breathing after 5 minutes, not 9.
Not 9.
And he kept the pressure on for 9 minutes and 20 something seconds. And he even kept the pressure on him after the ambulance came, and when the ambulance came, they said, "Oh, this guy's dead." That's what he said. And then they had to move the ambulance because they couldn't get it close enough, and it was, the process that he went through was just staggering.
Wow.
Are we still alive?
It is sad. I mean, police have a very difficult job, but at the same time, you have to distinguish between this thing and rest of the other items.
Yeah. He had 22 complaints against him already prior to this for police brutality, I guess.
Well, maybe next show we can talk a little bit about how we can improve the police community interaction in some meaningful way. Unfortunately, I don't think we have the time to do it now, but something's got to be done. We have to be able to trust the people who are protecting us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an important point, that we have to trust the police, because that is what provides the society a structure to keep it together, essentially, protect it in multiple ways.
You need someone who is there to adjudicate the disputes between people. And that's the judicial system, not only the police, but the courts, etc.